Hey friends, so today's Gentleman's Perspective video looks a little bit different. I interviewed Ryan Gregory. He is an assistant manager at a group home. He majored in industrial design and he is deaf. So we had to think of a creative way to do this interview. And so we collaborated and decided that emailing would be the best option since I'm not fluent in ASL and I don't sign very many phrases. So I emailed him the questions and he emailed me back his responses in a Google Doc. So what you are about to see is me asking questions, and you will hear, if you are in our hearing audience, you will hear Cyrus Green stating Ryan's answers. There will be outtakes afterwards because it's me and Cyrus, by the way. And the entire video will be subtitled for those in our audience who use subtitles. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope it's helpful. I hope we all kind of learn something about the space that we occupy in society and maybe certain privileges that we don't think about. There is a story that Ryan wanted me to share that he told me after our interview. So after we'd already recorded his responses, he told me about one time when he was a freshman in industrial design school, and his hearing professor told him, you speak so well, you almost sound like a hearing person, and that's really going to help you in your industrial design career. The thing with that comment is it's the equivalent of a white person telling a black person, you speak such proper English for a black person. Like, it's a microaggression, and Ryan actually taught me a new term, audism. Think racism, but autism. So it is a form of discrimination against people who are hard of hearing or deaf. And I think if we kind of step out of our privilege, we may see that we have a very privileged space. We live in a very privileged space if we are hearing. And so that may be something to consider when we make compliments. Like, maybe think about, is this a compliment or is this like a backhanded compliment that actually is propping up my privilege and is actually marginalizing someone by saying you could almost pass for hearing. You might actually get a job. Not a compliment. So he wanted me to share that with you guys. So now here's the rest of our interview. Enjoy.
Boy, you touch my shine, just know it ain't my style, it ain't my shade, ain't what I do, ain't what I say. I'm just hella bad, I'm just hella bad, I'm just hella bad. Your fault if you're offended, I'm just hella bad.
I appreciate you so much for letting me ask you these questions. So let's just start with an icebreaker. What are your hobbies, worst moments of 2020, best movie shows, and best moments of 2020?
Oh, let's crack some ice. My hobbies are mostly sports, hanging with friends. I play basketball and golf. The worst moments of 2020 would be the untimely passing of Kobe, Gigi, and the 7 others in the tragic helicopter crash. And after contracting COVID-19 and having to quarantine for an entire month of May, that was psychologically exhausting. Best movies. I would have to say Bad Boys for Life, Just Mercy, Project Power, Extraction, and Onwards. I'm big into action movies, as you can see. And as for shows, I would have to say Lovecraft Country. Let's rewind it one more time.
No, yeah, Lovecraft Country is great. What else?
I May Destroy You, Watchmen, Little Fires Everywhere. Best moments of 2020 were when I was in Salt Lake City for New Year's Eve and Los Angeles for the Lakers game. New York City just last month for my homegirl's 30th on a boat. Greatest moment would be the Lakers winning the championship for Kobe, Gigi, and the Bryant family.
Awesome. So, have you ever been interviewed about your experience navigating life as a man, a black man, or a black man who is deaf? And if so, what format worked best for you during that process? And what terminology do you use to describe your hearing status?
Yes, I have been interviewed based on my experiences as a black deaf student in an education setting. She was a black deaf master student at UT Knox during a graduate thesis. We interviewed via FaceTime since she knows ASL, so it was easier that way. The terminology I use is deaf. I can't hear anything below 80 decibels. I prefer people to say deaf or hard of hearing. I absolutely loathe the term hearing impaired.
Okay. So, how do you define the difference between lowercase d, deaf, uppercase D, deaf, and hard of hearing?
Deaf with the capital D is a reference to being culturally deaf, meaning one is actively involved and are a part of the deaf community. Hard of hearing simply implies that one has hearing loss but can still hear well with the help of hearing aids and implants. Also, hard of hearing people tend to know how to talk and interact better with hearing people than people who are fully deaf. As for deaf, it just means the person is deaf, really.
Okay. Have you ever been put into the position of speaking for all deaf people or all Black deaf people? As you know, this is a frequent experience for people of color in general. So I'm wondering about the added nuance of being deaf.
Yes, I have been put into a position of speaking for all deaf people because people tend to be ignorant when it comes to deaf community. A lot of people assume that deaf people are incapable of doing normal things that hearing people do, such as driving, raising kids, schoolwork, and things of that nature. Basically, any ordinary human behavior that hearing people foolishly think we can't do. Just because our ears doesn't work doesn't mean we're incapable. As for being put in positions of speaking for all black deaf people, that hasn't really happened to me.
Interesting. So talk about your career. What do you do and how did you get into it?
I work in an assisted living group home for deaf and mentally disabled who also have physical disabilities. My boy, whom I went to college with, offered me the position of an assistant manager, which pays more than the landscaping job I was working at in Virginia. So I took the opportunity since it's a new city and a different experience for me to live my own life. One has to leave the nest sometimes, you know.
Exactly. So does being deaf impact your job responsibilities? Have you ever experienced double prejudice in terms of racial discrimination and communication barriers in the workplace? And if so, how?
It hasn't really impacted my job responsibilities because I work for a company that is very accessible and interpreters are provided if needed. It's more so that being deaf makes it harder to find a job at companies that do not have any experience working with deaf people. I have a degree in industrial design and couldn't find a job to hire me despite several interviews.
What kind of hearing loss do you have? And do you feel this is an insensitive question or does it overstep what you care to share?
I have severe hearing loss. It's not an insensitive question whatsoever, to me at least.
And as a Black man, how do you seek support from others in the midst of police brutality, Black Lives Matter, the political climate, etc.?
Really, I just talk to my family and friends since we all we got in this white man's world. I would just drown myself in all things black. Black art, black music, black movies, black anything.
Yes. What irks your soul? So that can be a general pet peeve or anything.
Racist ass white people irk my soul.
Ooh,
Just being ignorant and dumb.
how you feel? I agree. So talk about what you love about the deaf subculture or the hard of hearing subculture as you know it, are there any small comforts you share with deaf or hard of hearing people when navigating predominantly hearing spaces, i.e., like the Black person's head nod? Yeah.
Well, one thing I love about the deaf subculture is that we can sign anywhere and in any setting, through windows, in quiet spaces such as libraries, and even underwater. Small comforts would be talking shit about hearing people when they stare at us speaking in ASL, as if we don't notice them.
Mm. What does your self-care look like? And when do you find it most necessary?
Gym is my self-care. I can focus on my workouts or hooping without the outside world interfering. Sometimes I will go out into the city to eat at restaurants or go to the movies. Sometimes self-care is absolutely necessary because it helps get your mind in the right space and steadies the ship in these rough seas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In your experience, or the experience of your friends, has dating been more difficult as someone who is deaf or hard of hearing?
Dating is much more difficult with hearing people, mostly because they don't know any signs and tend to freak out over something such as a foreign experience to them.
And talk about your favorite and least favorite things about living in Boston. And is it mad racist like everyone says?
Boston, what can I say? It's expensive as hell to live here, but the city offers a lot of great things. The food is great, the people are generally pretty nice. I have yet to experience racism while living here. Well, at least overt racism. Probably helps that I'm 6'4", black man, and people don't want to mess with me.
Okay. What is the best concert you've ever been to?
Man, that's a tough question. I'm on the fence between J. Cole's Forest Hill Drive concert and Toby Nwigwe. I would have to say it's a tie. Nwigwe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love both of them so much. I want to go. I wanted those Toby tickets. The online concert. Should have done it. Okay. A few years ago, the New Zealand Herald published a story reporting that deaf are being elbowed out of top spots in their own organizations by hearing folks. Can you touch on any ways you have experienced white privilege and or hearing privilege infringing on the Black, deaf, or hard of hearing community?
That's pretty true. I've seen it happen occasionally. Not in my experience, but what happened elsewhere. A lot of organizations tend to have a majority of hearing leadership and make it harder for deaf, especially black ones, from attaining senior leadership positions on boards as such, especially at Gallaudet, which is sadly still happening today.
Do you sign and or lip read? And what is your preferred mode of communicating with people who are deaf or hard of hearing and with those who are hearing?
I do both. With deaf people, I usually sign. I can talk, so I can communicate verbally with hearing people. If they can't understand me, I just type it out in my notes app on my phone.
Okay. And what do you wish hearing people knew about deaf or hard of hearing to make them more accommodating and sensitive?
Learn deaf history and learn ASL, American Sign Language. Simple as that.
Short and sweet. Do people often ask if your other senses are stronger because you are deaf? And is this an insensitive statement to make? Why or why not?
No one has ever asked me that. I don't think it would be offensive because we know that it is scientifically proven that our other senses are enhanced. We take pride in having better peripheral vision than hearing people. Also, deaf people are safer drivers than hearing people.
Did not know that. All right. What is your favorite place you've traveled to? Places you hope to go? And any added barriers to traveling that hearing people don't think about?
LA is my favorite place I've traveled to. I want to travel the world, so my list is pretty long. Top destinations would be St. Lucia, Japan, Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Jamaica, Switzerland, Canada, and yada, yada, yada. Really, the only barrier is communication and language difference.
And tell the people what is wrong with the terms deaf mute, deaf and dumb, or hearing impaired.
Those terms are pretty loaded due to the history of the mistreatment of deaf people. Deaf people, for the most part, are far from mute. Why? They can scream. Those terms harken back to the dark days when hearing people, especially doctors, believed that deaf people are so incapable of doing literally anything but walk, sleep, and eat. How are we done when the education system was never adapted to fit our needs because we can't hear? They decided to group us with people who have special needs. Hearing impaired is nothing more than a medical term for doctors to use. It doesn't define us whatsoever. How exactly are we hearing impaired when we can hear with our eyes? None of us are impaired in any shape or form. They simply didn't bother to take the time to understand us and rather group us with a group of people who have far more severe and debilitating conditions. Not only that, doctors by large are dangerously ignorant of deaf people. They only see us as patients who need to be fixed. Did you know that before gas chambers were installed at concentration camps, some of the first people who were used to test gas chambers were deaf? There have been a long, and I mean long, history of deaf people being mistreated and brutalized simply for not being able to hear.
Ooh, that's a lot. Thank you for that history. That's a lot of things I didn't know. And we definitely aren't taught that anything about deaf history or history of people with hearing, hard of hearing in our education system. So what is a question you wish people would not ask you? And what is a question you wish people would ask you more?
I really don't like it when people, especially strangers, ask if I can lip read. It's mentally draining because it takes a lot of brain power to read lips, especially those thin ass lips that look like chimpanzees. I don't know the answer to the second question, to be honest.
Thank you. I love the honesty. How do you feel about answering these questions? And what do you hope people will learn?
I feel fantastic, kind of cathartic, if you will. I do hope that people will learn to be more open with getting to know deaf people and deaf history. It's such a beautiful culture, and ASL is a beautiful language.
So, what's on the horizon for you? Goals, things you're excited about, things you're hopeful for?
Hopefully, I will be moving either to Virginia or New York City or Cali next year. Whenever this pandemic fucks off, my goal is to make enough money from the stock market to live comfortably and that my parents can retire. I'm excited to start anew somewhere else. I'm hopeful that the next couple of months and 2021 will be better than these hellish past couple of months.
Thank you so much for answering those questions. And I hope that you guys learned something new about the deaf community, the hard of hearing community, or maybe any assumptions that you had made previously. And what is your preferred mode of communicating with people who are deaf and those who are hearing?
I do both with the deaf people. I do both with deaf people.
Let's start that question over because you've messed me up. I'm just gonna have to edit this. Okay. Thank you for that. No, what are you asking me?
Rather group us with people who have far more severe deliver 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 deliver.
Debilitating. Oh my god.
Let's rewind that. Cut. Action.
Well, just
stop.
start at let me mark down what we need to edit. Just start it. Hold on, what's the sentence that you start with? None of us.
I don't even know what the hell that is.
After the question, let's see with our eyes. Oh, you were right there. Where are you going? It's question 19.
Yeah.
So keep going down. Start right there.
None of us are impaired in any shape or form.
You have to kind of speak up too. Your voice getting quieter.
And debilitating. Debilitating.
Oh my god.
I can't stop.
Okay, wait.
Debilitating.
Okay, start over. Just look at the word. I don't think you look at the word all the way through. Okay.
None of us. Damn, I forgot. What is this supposed to be right here?
Where?
I feel kind of cathartic, if you will. Did I enunciate and pronounce that word right? I feel fantastic, kind of cathartic, if you. What were you asking me?
You look like a sheep.
I'm warm and cozy. I'm tired.
Why are you this?
I'm tired.
Oh no! Go back.
I'm so tired. What happened?
Show the people.
I'm not.
Oh, darn it. What are you going through? What? It's like, you asked for dough a lot. Look, put them down. You guys, who wore it best? Judy or me? Skeeter was black, but they try to just make him teal, so nobody would know.
What did I show my cousin Skeeter?
Yeah, that was something different. Oh.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Do it. Do
Okay,
it
what?
now. What?
Anything you want, he's got it.
I got it.
Anywhere he goes, he spot it. 5'5" and brown eyes, smile like the sunrise. Give it to him. Yes. Okay, we're not good. We need to get started. Gallaudet.
Gallaudet. Is that the name of the school?
Gallaudet, I think so.
Ooh. Gallaudet.
Ready? What is the vocal run you'd like to practice before?
We're gonna start this shit
How
off
now,
right.
brown cow. How now, brown cow.
How now, brown cow.
Say toy boat 3 times.
Toy boat.
You gotta say it faster than that. Toy boat.
Toy boat.
Toy boat. Oh, okay.
Excuse me.
Ooh.
That was my soul escaping.
Oh wait, smash.
My mommy made me smash my M&M's. Oh my mommy made me smash my M&M's. Oh my mommy made me smash my M&M's. Oh my
mommy made me mash my M&M's. Oh my. And sing. Say something, Cyrus. Just say anything. In like the voice you're gonna read in. The volume.
Hello, my name is Cyrus Green, and I will be reading from Joseph's Ryan's Gregory question.
Ryan's Gregory.
Ryan Gregory. Please bear with me and my speech impediment.
Oh my gosh, don't say that.